after the live stream, you just go off. All right, go to camera 4 me. Go. Start it with me on. And mute the microphones for now. If you're not the headphones. Turn the microphone off. Well, hello everybody. Welcome back. We're here tonight for another conversation with Scott Bilse. I'm looking forward to talking with him. just a couple quick things to kind of kickstart everything and make sure that everybody understands where we're coming from. A couple reminders that this is not associated in any way, shape, or form with any particular group, with any political forum, with any Facebook groups. There was a couple people that thought it was being sponsored or hosted by a particular group, and that's just not the case. I want to make sure everybody's aware. At one point, it was going to be streamed in a group, and then what I wanted to do is make sure it was opened up to everybody, and so we decided to do it here on YouTube and hope that we would be able to kind of make it available to everyone to be able to watch. And so that's what we did. So it's not affiliated with any particular person. Just to reintroduce myself to you, if you're not familiar, my name is Matt McMorris, and I'm the pastor at Grace Valley Church and just a citizen of the community of Lodi. Love it here. We've lived here for about 5 years now, and just wanting to be involved and informed in what's going on in the local political scene here in our community. My goal tonight is to be impartial and to let Scott really share with us what's on his mind and what his thoughts are, and kind of be able to understand more about what he thinks and why he thinks the things he does. And so we're going to have a good conversation, hopefully, with him. If you'd like to leave some comments in the thread, you're welcome to do that. I don't know that we'll get to them during this conversation, but those are things that he'll be able to look at after the fact and be able to respond to when he's got time to be able to do that as well. So I want to welcome my guest, Scott. Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to ask you, if you can, just to pull that microphone up a little bit closer. That way it's nice and clear and people can hear you well. Scott, I'm going to start off just kind of like I did last night for those that watched the interview with Nathan, and just kind of ask you, what do you think kind of makes you unique for the school board position? How do you think maybe you're different than some of the others that are currently running? There's 4 others running right now.
Well, I don't know necessarily that I'm unique in any particular way. A little bit about me. Essentially I'm a lifelong resident of Lodi. I came through the Lodi school system. My father was a high school teacher here for his entire career. I have close ties to the community, and my hope is that I can make a difference. I have, over the past number of years, since my kids got into high school, been attending board meetings on a fairly regular basis. I've tried to keep myself informed as to the goings-on in the school district, and with the current climate as it is, I thought now might be a good time to try to give back. I listened to public input at the meetings, and some of the people that spoke talked about giving back to the community, and I always thought somebody else is doing this. I have a good friend who recently started to work with the city, and at one of the meetings it just clicked. Why not make a run for the school board? When I decided to do that, I was only aware of the 2 incumbents running, and part of the decision was I wanted people to have an option. I wanted people to have a choice if they looked for change. Once I signed my papers and was allowed to run for the school board, I then learned of Heather and Nathan's desire to run as well, and there's our 5.
You've mentioned a few times in some of your candidacy that you're running as a candidate for change. What do you mean by that? Change from what, or to what?
Well, the biggest thing with regards to change is right now I really truly believe, from following the Facebook posts, for example, or from more importantly, attending school board meetings and watching interactions between school board and community members and parents, that there is basically a relationship that is in disrepair. I use the term fractured at the Optimist Q&A. I think there are a lot of hard feelings on the parts of different, whether it be community members or parents or even administration or school board members. And what I really want to see changed is I want to see those relationships improved. I think that there is a great opportunity for people to listen to different people's perspectives, for us to work together, perhaps for people to compromise, and in the end, do what's best for our students.
So how do you want to bridge that gap with the division and the fact that all that's going on? What would your role be in that? How do you
Well, I think
look to
one of the
fix that?
concerns that people in the community have is that they don't feel that they're being heard. I don't. I believe that people in the community don't feel that when they, for example, speak at public input, that much is being paid to what they're saying, much attention is being paid to what they're saying. I want them to know that if I'm elected to the school board, I will listen. I think that a relationship, healthy relationship between community, parents, teachers, administration is important for the success. Frankly, it seems to me like there's been a lot of bickering back and forth, and one of the ways that I could see myself working towards change is to try to improve those communication lines.
So you mentioned that one of the goals is to listen and to hear the community. Not long ago, there was a survey that went out about masking, where the community, in majority, I don't know if it was a vast majority, but if I remember the survey correctly, the majority of the community said that they didn't want masking, but the school board went ahead and continued the mask mandates. You've stated on your page, I've got some of the comments in front of me, that you still, for the time being, you still believe that masking with a mandate is the way to go. And I want to give you an opportunity, because I think that's something that a lot of people are obviously debating, whether or not we should be mandating masking or whether it should be freedom of choice. I want to give you the platform and let you explain why you believe that masking is something you like to continue.
So what you're looking at, as far as what I would have typed up and posted on my Facebook page, understand that when that was done in early January. And I've given this masking issue a lot of thought. And what I think is important for people to realize and understand, that nothing that I'm saying tonight with regards to masking is to try to sway someone to vote for me. What you're going to get from me is you're going to get somebody who's going to let you know where they stand on an issue, why they feel the way they do about the issue. I'm an open book, so you're going to know where I stand and why I stand there. Now, getting back to your question about masking, and I'm glad you brought it up, because I thought, frankly, that there'd be a lot more of an opportunity for me at the Optimist Q&A to talk about this. The reason that I feel that masking now is important is because my top priority, and I can't stress this enough, my top priority is to keep kids in school, in-person learning. And the masking issue, it's going to change with time. What I tell you, or what I wrote in January, or what I tell you tonight, could very well change by the time I'm elected. If I'm elected.
Sure.
The election isn't until April. And the models that I have been looking at and I have been using, looking back in years past through the pandemic, predict that the curve as far as number of cases is going to flatten. I have spoken to people at the school, the administration. I have talked to Vince Breinig. I have sought his opinion as far as where do teachers stand with masking. What I was told was that there are some teachers who are opposed to it, and I respect that. What I was told was that a majority of teachers are in favor of masking. And again, I don't know everyone's reasoning behind where they stand on that issue, but my belief is that they have the same intent that I do, which is to try to keep kids in school and in-person learning. So when I wrote that in January, And when I'm talking to you right now, but particularly in January, we were on historically high numbers of cases. The curve was going up, up, up. It was going straight up. What I mean by curve is I mean number of new cases per day. Now, when I wrote that, I got a lot of pushback from people who don't agree with masking. And I completely understand people's frustration with masking. This has been a long 2+ years. People are tired of COVID. People are tired of masking. But that doesn't mean it's gone away. Many people pushed back on my stance with regards to CDC recommendations. People said to me, I don't believe what they're saying in Washington. I don't believe what the CDC is saying. Just get people or just get our kids out of school where masking is mandated and let them go back without masks. So what did I do? I went and I started looking at numbers locally. I went to the Wisconsin Department of Public Health and I looked at numbers for Wisconsin. But not only did I look at numbers for Wisconsin, I looked at numbers for Columbia County. And in January, when I wrote that, I was able to look at the numbers of confirmed cases in the county, Columbia County. And in bringing my numbers up to date in preparation for the Q&A with the Optimist and then with you tonight, part of the reason that I'm saying what I'm saying about masks right now is when you go to this website and you look at the numbers of cases in January 2nd, 2022, and I'm not going anywhere special to look at this stuff. Anybody can go look at these numbers. They're online and they're not hard to find. But basically, when the state started recording these numbers, basically day zero was March 2nd of 2020. And in looking at these trends, what you see is in February and into March through to September, you see the number of cases both in 2020 and in 2021 start to level out. Going into September and into the winter, you start to see the numbers start to creep back up. So March 2nd, 2020, 0 cases in Columbia County. So let's fast forward. January 2nd, 2022, 9,905 confirmed cases of COVID in Columbia County, Wisconsin. So I'm not looking at national numbers. I'm not looking at numbers in Italy. I'm looking at numbers in our backyard, and I'm looking at numbers in Lodi. So again, January 2nd, 2022, 9,905 cases, Columbia County. Fast forward to January 31st, 2022. So 1 month. Number of confirmed cases of COVID in Columbia County, 13,370. Now, those numbers that I'm giving you are the total number of cases since this started. So what does that mean? That means in January, because of the Omicron variant, 3,465 cases. You know what that breaks down to in that month because of what was happening with the pandemic? That's 25% of the total cases in Columbia County since the start of the pandemic. So when people ask me, why don't we get rid of masking right now? That's the reason. If you don't like and for the record, the population of Columbia County in the 2019 census was 57,532 people. So you can start to do the math to figure out the percentage of people that have been affected. Now, last night, I went and I looked back at the website, and the most recent number that I have is from February 5th of 2022, 13,629 cases. So roughly in a week's time, that's 300 cases. What does that tell me? It tells me that we're starting to level out. You don't like the Columbia County numbers? We can do even better. The school on their website has a COVID tracking page. And you can go to that website and you can look at the number of cases. And I have some of that information. You can look and you can see the number of, they combine staff and students together. So the numbers that they'll give you is the number of staff and students that have been diagnosed with COVID in the school district. Most recent data that I saw was ending the 24th of January, so a couple of weeks ago. 362 cases. You can go down that page and you can look. The school has it all there for you. And what you can do is you can look at weekly totals of COVID cases since the start of the school year. So what they do is they break it down. They give you week by week. They even break it down elementary school, primary school, elementary school, OSC, middle school, high school. There's sort of four different locations, and then they give you a total. So week by week, starting September 1st, 2021 through September 5th, that first week of school, 5 cases. Okay, 5 COVID cases, staff and students. So each week moving forward, I'll just bear with me. I'm just going to rattle some numbers off here, but these are the weekly cases of COVID as reported by the school district of Lodi, and the numbers I've given you are the totals for all 4 schools. So the first week was 5, 1, 17, 2, 3, 8, 4, 3, 2, 2, 4, 3, 2. Starting the week of November 29th, 12. Week of December 6th, 13. Week of 12-13 starting. I think these are all Mondays.
Sure.
15, 12-20, 8, 12-27, 8. January 3rd through January 9th, 57. January 10th, 70. January 17th, 82. January 24th through the 30th, 41. So what we're seeing, or the point I'm trying to get across as far as January, when I wrote what I wrote about masking, we were seeing the numbers spike in Columbia County. We were seeing the numbers spike in our school. And again, spiking numbers to me means greater likelihood of running out of teachers, running out of food service personnel, running out of bus drivers, running out of the ability for in-person learning. So when I put out there that I'm in support of continuing a mask mandate, to me it's a tool that we have that we can use to try to slow the spread of COVID with the intent purpose of keeping kids in-person learning. I believe that these numbers are going to decline. And if I am elected to the school board, I can't stress this enough to people who think that all I want to do is mask kids. I believe that this school year there will be an opportunity to safely go to mask optional. I would never want any student in our district to feel that they couldn't wear a mask if they felt more comfortable. But I would also want to give people the opportunity who who don't want to wear a mask that opportunity. I have talked with the superintendent of the Lodi School District about his thoughts on whether or not he believes that we can go mask optional this year. And what he told me is that it is his hope that we are able to do this. The timing of the election, meaning in April, to me is a time when that curve will flatten. I think the opportunity is going to exist to be able to go mask optional. Now, I can't predict what the numbers are going to do.
Right.
But in looking at 2020 and 2021, I believe the trend will hold, and we will be able to look at safely allowing for mask optional without the risk of having to go back to virtual learning. To me, the other benefit of trying to put a mask optional policy in place is that if we see a massive spike in numbers and have to go to a virtual learning environment, it will be for a very relatively small percentage of the total school year, and we will perhaps be able to figure out if it doesn't work, why it didn't work, and what we can do to correct it so that in the fall of next school year, we would be ready for mask optional. So I know that that's throwing a lot of numbers out there, and I know that I've talked for a really long time about this, but I'm passionate about it. And again, to people that are opposed to me being elected to the school board purely on the grounds of he wants to mask everybody, he does now. And if I was on the board right now, I would agree with what they're doing because of these numbers that I'm rattling off to you, numbers that aren't off in some faraway place, but numbers that are literally here in Lodi.
But what data do you have that proves that masking is working? Because a lot of people, even the CDC has come out and said that cloth masks, for example, aren't working. But we're still, as long as they're
Matt,
wearing those. Let me finish my sentence.
Said that though.
But there has been plenty of public scientists and well-known people. I believe Dr. Fauci even said it that these cloth masks aren't working. So, do you think cloth masks work then? Do you think they are beneficial? Because a lot of the science now is coming out saying that they're not as effective.
Yes, I believe that cloth masks are effective. What the CDC has said is the CDC recommends that you wear a comfortable mask and a mask that you're going to be able to wear for an extended period of time. Yes, the CDC says that a respirator or an N95 mask, or what I have on here, which is a procedural or surgical mask, is superior to a cloth mask. But the CDC does not say that cloth masks don't work.
So what data is there that shows that they do work? Because that's what a lot of people argue, is that they don't work.
I can pull studies that show that it worked. There are studies out there that show that masks
and there are studies that show
effective.
that they don't work.
So it depends on what side of the studies you want to fall on, I suppose.
So the perspective that a lot of people in our community, I think, are coming from is there's evidence on both sides that some people say they do work, some people say they don't work. So the word mandate is a strong word, that you're going to force our kids to wear a mask, which may or may not work, to protect them from an illness that statistically is not harming kids as much as even other illnesses that we've seen in the past.
Not one time in what I have talked about with regards to masking have I said that I'm concerned that if we have a significant number of COVID cases in our kids, that I think that there are going to be dire consequences. I agree. For the overwhelming vast majority of kids that get COVID, they do just fine. My whole policy or my whole stance with regards to masking, again, currently, is my desire to keep the kids in school and not going back to that
But
virtual learning model.
they've been in masks, they've been distanced, and our numbers are still climbing. So a lot of people would look at that and say, you see, people are still spreading it. They're still getting it, even with the masks.
But the counter argument to that is, where would the numbers be if we weren't wearing the masks?
Which is not proof, though.
Nobody is going to tell you that masks universally stop the spread of COVID. It's obvious that they don't.
Sure.
I'm just coming at this from the perspective of, I believe that they're a valuable tool in trying to mitigate the spread of the disease, and in turn, something that we can do to try to keep our administration, our teachers, and our students as healthy as possible.
See, that's an interesting phrase, though. You say keep them as healthy as possible. That's keep them healthy from COVID. But there are other negative side effects to wearing masks that exist. There's other illnesses that can come from wearing a mask. There's social anxiety. There's speech issues where kids are not being able to see and read facial cues and learn how to speak correctly. So these masks aren't they also creating other problems?
There are those that would also say that if kids are not in school, that is very detrimental to their mental health.
I agree. My daughter,
which I think we could all agree upon.
And my daughter has been home from school for 10 days, 5 different stints, and not one time has she had COVID, but she was forced to quarantine because of close contact. So kids are still not getting school as much as they need. They're still being asked to leave school for reasons related to COVID, which statistically is not much worse, if any worse, than, say, the flu or things of that at this point, this Omicron variant. Compared to, I get that the Alpha variant and some of those others maybe were different. But as it stands right now, the sickness isn't that big of a deal. So why are we sending so many people home? Why aren't they staying in school, even if they're in a close contact situation?
Well, we're trying to minimize the spread and trying to.
But it's going to spread. It still is. I mean, you just showed us the numbers are going up dramatically.
The numbers
even with masking.
Right. The numbers are going up because of the variant and how contagious it is.
Right. And even with the masking, it's continuing to go up. So why are we continuing to do something like masking, which isn't proven to be effective?
So what would you, Matt?
Well, I'm not running for school board. I'm asking you.
Suggest that we stop taking the masks off to see what happens with the numbers, because that is not what I would. That's not what I would endorse.
Yeah, and I'm not suggesting anything because I'm not running for school board. What I'm saying is that there's a lot of people that are saying that the masks aren't as effective as you're claiming that they are. In fact, the governor of New Jersey and the governor of Connecticut are in the process of ending the statewide mandates for their schools. New Jersey, I think, is taking it away completely. Connecticut is leaving it up to the local school boards, hoping, the way I understand it, hoping that they will eliminate those mandates. Even the Leanna Wen, I think is her name, the CNN medical expert, is saying that we need to loosen up on mask mandates. We see guys like Governor Newsom, who's taking pictures with Magic Johnson and in restaurants without a mask on, and we see the mayor of Los Angeles without a mask on, and then saying silly things like, I held my breath the whole time during the picture. Stacey Abrams getting her picture taken without a mask on. So there does seem to be this, the elites are different, the ones making the rules aren't following the rules in the way they expect everybody else to. So it is difficult, I think, sometimes to trust people in these positions. And some will say, well, this is just a political argument you're making. And I'm not trying to. I'm trying to make an argument of there's evidence on both sides, and so why not give parents the ability to choose for themselves what they prefer rather than mandating it?
I appreciate your point of wanting to allow parents to choose what they think is best for their children. I fully subscribe to that point of view. But with regards to what we're dealing with this worldwide pandemic, what I'm trying to get across with regards to my stance on masking is that you can find facts to support either side of the argument. And whatever side of this argument you're on, just as you're doing, you can give me all of these reasons why we don't need to do this. I just happen to disagree with that. And I'm telling you, as a candidate running for school board, that I believe our best strategy for kids staying in school, and I'm going to keep pounding that, because to me that is where all of this is coming from, is the continued use of masks. And again, you commented on that, saying right now, and that's what I'm saying too.
Sure.
I don't believe that this is something that is going to have to be permanent. I've already alluded to the fact that by the time the election rolls around, and if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, that meeting, I would be shocked if I'm not in a position to say, if it hasn't already been done, can we look at our mask policy?
Sure.
And what options are there for us?
And just to be clear for you and everybody listening in, I'm pressing you on purpose because we talked beforehand that we were going to discuss this. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm intentionally being rude to Scott. In fact, Heather's been outspoken that she is not for masking, and tomorrow night I plan to have just as difficult a conversation with her, playing the other side of the issue. So I'm not here to try to make Scott look bad. I want him to be able to truly express it, and I'm trying to ask questions that I feel like other people would want to ask as well. I think that's kind of my responsibility here. So I'm going to take it back to...
Again, I can't stress enough that I understand people's frustration with what's going on, whether it be masking in the Lodi schools or whether it be what's going on worldwide with this pandemic that we're living through.
I guess my biggest question for you then on this issue is, and then I want to move on to a couple other things, is at the beginning of your statement you said you want change and that you want to listen to parents. But at the same time you're saying, but if the parents were to say overwhelmingly that they want to be unmasked or to have choice, not unmasked, to have freedom to choose that you would, it sounds to me like, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, it sounds to me that you're saying you would still vote to mandate masks even if the majority of the community did not want masks. So I just want to give you the opportunity to kind of explain that.
Well, I don't know that that's the case. I know that there are people out there who don't want to have a mask mandate for their kids going to school in Lodi.
Sure.
I don't know how many parents agree with the stance that I'm taking.
I think that was the last study is what I'm referring to, the one or the survey they did a while back, is that people said they didn't. But things have changed even since then. So I agree with you on that. That's why I'm respectful of your position.
Yeah, and I'm not, honestly, I'm not sure when that survey was taken that you're referencing. And I'll go one step further and I'll tell you, I don't know specifically what the results were of that survey. I don't know what the numbers were as far as people that completed that. I don't know what percentage of parents in the school district completed that. That would be something where I could educate myself on. And I know that this can be a very unpopular stance with many in the community. And if this is an issue where you take exception to my rationale as far as why I feel the way that I do, I completely understand that. And I hope that there will be the opportunity for all on both sides, which is something that I kind of alluded to in my opening comments, to figure out a safe solution to get rid of these things.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Okay, I think that was one of the big concerns or question marks, I should say, that people had with your candidacy. So I'm going to leave that.
I appreciate you allowing me to speak on it, because you can only get so much across on a Facebook post. You can only explain yourself to a certain extent when you have a minute to answer a question.
Right.
So being able to take however many minutes I took, a half hour
Yeah.
talking about this is beneficial for all, I believe.
Sure.
And I'm not I'm not asking people who disagree with me on masking to all of a sudden come over to my side because I'm throwing some numbers at you.
Right.
I want you to understand where where I where I come from and why I feel the way I do. And it's my belief that while you may not agree with me on masking, we would all agree on the importance of keeping the kids
Right.
in school.
And I respect that. Let me move on a little bit. There's a lot of talk about the referendum and the school with finances and those kind of things. Let me ask you a little bit about what your thoughts are on the school and its financial fiscal responsibilities as far as some of that stuff is concerned. There's I feel like the community is divided on a lot of things, and this is another one of those topics. So, just to kind of jump off onto this conversation, what are your thoughts on the referendum in particular? I know you don't have any. Even if you're elected in April, the vote for that will already go through. So let's make an assumption. If the referendum is voted down, which I have no clue, if it's a no, what does that, in your opinion, mean for the school and how you plan to lead moving forward with that?
Well, the first thing I want people to understand about the referendum in April is that a no vote doesn't mean the end of the world. It doesn't mean that the sky is falling and that everything is going to change about the school. If the referendum fails in the April election, and if I'm fortunate enough to be elected to the school board, there will still be recourse for another referendum in the fall.
Okay.
Now, the current referendum that the community members will be voting on in April is basically a $6 million referendum that's divided into two parts. It is a non-reoccurring referendum, and the course of the referendum would be 5 years. So people should understand that it is a $6 million referendum divided into two parts, but $6 million per year for a total of 5 years. So it is, in essence, it is a $30 million referendum. Now, the two parts that it's divided into are operations, which is roughly 3.8 million, I believe.
I forget. I don't have the numbers right in front of me. I should have.
I do.
Okay, I was going to say I can pull them up, but
8.5 million for operations.
okay, yeah, I do have them right here. Yep.
And the operations portion of the referendum is to continue with programs that we're accustomed to having here in Lodi. It's to continue to pay our teachers. It's to help bump up the salaries of our teachers. And it's to basically keep our staffing full. The second part of the referendum is a maintenance portion. And that is a little over $2 million. So over the course of the 5 years, it would be roughly $10 million.
Right.
And that portion of the referendum is to complete different maintenance projects that the school wants to get completed. I know that the school has had outside consulting company come in and look at the facilities. And if I'm not mistaken, from my attending of board meetings, there's roughly 1,000-page binder. I believe that's what I've heard the school board members talk to as far as projects that need to be completed over the next numerous years. So when current school board decided on the referendum, they had to decide what they wanted to ask for.
Mm-hmm.
Many people may not be aware, but rules have changed with regards to referendum and how many questions you can ask in a calendar year.
Right.
You used to be able to ask numerous questions. Now you can only ask 2
Right.
referendum questions per year. So I sat in the audience at the board meeting when there was discussions as to what do we want to ask for. And I know that there was a member of the school board who thought perhaps it might be best to ask for only the operations portion because of the concern as for the price tag,
Mm-hmm.
as to the fact that $6 million is a pretty significant amount of money, $30 million over 5 years. And there were discussions back and forth with the school board members, and the decision was made, no, let's ask for the operations and the maintenance together and see if we can get the community to get behind the referendum and give it a yes vote, with the idea being this way we don't have to come back in the fall and ask another referendum question, because people obviously will fatigue with referendum questions over a period of time. And
Right.
people are already strapped. You know, we spent 30 minutes talking about COVID and in-person learning. Well, COVID hasn't affected only our students. COVID's affected every single person in our community.
Mm-hmm.
Things cost more. Rate of inflation has gone up dramatically. People are having their homes reassessed. They're seeing their taxes raised. And I know that there was concern on the board from some members as to how much can we keep asking for? Because at some point, people are gonna say enough is enough. And when I put my talking point out about the referendum, and when I was asked this at the Q&A, I had concerns about a $6 million referendum on top of what's currently going on. I am not anti-referendum.
Sure.
I just don't want to see the operations portion of the referendum fail because people are concerned about attaching this other part to it. Now, your original question was, what if I'm on the board in April and the referendum fails? My answer to that would be we reintroduce a referendum on the fall ballot, asking for the operations only portion at a lower price tag so that we can keep the programs and, more importantly, keep the people that we need,
Right.
the teachers employed, teaching our kids. I don't want to see class size jump up because we have to lay off teachers because we can't pay
Right.
their salaries. Now, what people may also not realize is we've been under referendum for the past 5 years. The referendum is expiring to the $1.7 million.
Mm-hmm.
So we have been funding this operations portion through referendum for the last 5 years already.
That's the not the operations portion, but the other portion, or is that for the operations as well? Do you know?
The $1.7 million referendum that was approved, I believe, 5 years ago,
Yep.
that's set to expire, and thus the reason for the new referendum, has basically been utilized. Again, my understanding,
Sure.
I'm on the outside looking in, and I'm trying to educate myself on school finance, because school finance, I'm learning very quickly,
Yeah.
is exceptionally complicated. I thought
It sure is.
Matt, I thought medicine was difficult.
Yeah.
School financing is more difficult than me trying to learn this medical business.
Yeah.
But my understanding is that the $1.7 million referendum that is expiring is essentially being used for what this $3.5 million, the 3.5 will kind of pick up on
Okay.
top of
So the
that.
facility stuff is kind of being added to that.
The facility stuff is not, that's being added
Yeah.
to the current referendum.
Because it's almost
for this
doubling
April.
and then adding the facility stuff.
Well, that's exactly what it's doing, because it's basically
Yeah.
going from 1.7
To 3.8.
to 3.8.
Yeah.
If the operations portion does not pass, whether it be in the April election or whether it be if it's if I had my way,
Yeah.
and it was brought back just as that, and say that failed, I know that from the information that I have here in the presentation that the superintendent will be doing and available to anybody who wants to come and listen, that they're talking about the possibility of losing 15 to 20 staff, because for the school budget, people make up the biggest portion of that. And if you've got to cut, millions of dollars from the budget, where can you do that? Well, the answer is people.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see that
Sure.
happen, obviously.
Part of it, my concern on part of this is that in that information that's available on the website, they did all the surveys and stuff where in the category of managing funds appropriately, there's 4 kind of grades. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 being poor, 2 being fair, 3 being good, 4 being great. And parents, which is non-staff, averaged out to be 2.7 in their opinion of managing funds appropriately. Non-parents, non-staff, even less at 2.44, and staff at 3.06, so a little bit better. So I wonder sometimes too if part of this is just the perceptions of how people are perceiving the school as handling money, because that's kind of what I'm seeing and hearing, is that people just appear to be frustrated at where's this going and why isn't it more. And I think you're right that it is complicated. So maybe there's a PR issue at some level.
Well, I think it gets back to trying to provide as much information as you can to people in the community, parents. I think it gets back to honestly answering questions when people present them to you, and not necessarily being dismissive of them because you disagree with a tenet of the question.
Sure.
Again, school financing is complicated business, and I'm more than willing to do my part to learn as much about this as I can. But again, it's complicated. Now, one of the points that I've also again, from attending these meetings, learned about and put that into one of my talking points is I know that the school board has the ability to basically set the mill rate.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that over the past number of years, the mill rate has been set artificially high. And I know that money that has been brought in has been used to pay down long-term debt on the primary school. And again, I understand the rationale behind it. The rationale behind it is if we pay down the long-term debt on that school, we're going to save money on the interest.
Right.
But I just question the tactic of levying a high tax rate and costing people more and more and more on their taxes in this specific case for a long-term loan with a relatively low interest rate.
Mm-hmm.
So again, that's what you're talking about with this perception of how money is being spent by the school district or by the school board.
Some of the complaints about this school in regards to the management of finances goes to things that are in a line item on the budget relatively small, but things that are often highly debatable. Things like the Dane County Equity Consortium and the money they spent on that, and other things similar. But that's another big issue is equity and the training that they've done and some of the resources they've given. Critical race theory, that's obviously a nation. And I know some people are they're probably rolling their eyes right now hearing me ask about it, but it is becoming something that is important in our community to I think understand where our board members land on those kind of things. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think, how do you define equity? How do you define critical race theory? And maybe just give me some general thoughts in that realm.
Well, equality is treating everyone equally, treating them the same. To me, equity certainly has the racial overtone, but to me, equity is basically treating individuals differently in an effort to provide them with what they need to succeed. That's the way I look at equity. And frankly, that's what I have been talking about with regards to part of my reason for running for the school board. What I mean by that is my goal for all of our students is to receive the education that they need and have it tailored to their needs so that they can be successful beyond their high school years or their school years in Lodi.
Sure.
Some students, they're going to go into the job market.
Mm-hmm.
Some students, they're going to go into the trades. Some students, they're going to go into technical school. Some students are going to go to a 4-year university. So not everybody needs the same experience in high school. And again, high school and obviously trickling down into the middle
Sure.
and in elementary school. I guess in this point,
It does
I'm
appear
kind
to
of
be most
focusing
evident.
on high school,
Yeah.
as you just mentioned. So my goal would be for us as leaders in the school, as far as being a board member or for administration or for say, counselors in the school, to look at each individual student, find out what their goals are, and find out what we can best do to help them reach their goal. And if that means that for some students, we need to provide them with extra tutoring in math and spend more time with them than we do with everybody else, then I want to have the teachers to have the ability to do that.
Mm-hmm.
If that means that we have students who are, say, from another country and say speak Spanish and don't speak English very well, I want them to have the ability, for example, the English as a second language program.
Mm-hmm.
They're in our school district. I want them to have the opportunity to have the resources that they need directed to them so that they can succeed. So I know that equity has this kind of this political overtone to it, or this racial overtone to it, and I understand that. But when I think of equity as far as for our students here in Lodi, what I was just discussing with you is kind of my emphasis and my thoughts on equity.
Several months back, there was a school board meeting where they showed a presentation about equity, and they were heralding it as a good thing, where they showed this image of several kids trying to see over a fence, and the illustration was this kid has 3 apple boxes, this kid has 2, this kid has 1, this kid can't see, and so they're taking apple boxes from the one kid to give to the other one so that he's able to see. And I think I understand the concept behind that illustration, but it sounds like what you're saying might be more of we just need to find another apple box for this kid, because my fear is a kid that is doing well and is advancing, why would we pull their apple box to this other kid? We need to find another way to help this other kid so that we're not harming one kid. We're not looking for equal results. We want to help support them with the things they need so they can all rise to the level of their best ability. Is that accurate?
I agree. And in a perfect world, we don't have to pull the resources that we're putting into, in your example, a student who's being very, very successful in the school, to pull something away from that student that may jeopardize their ability to be successful to give to somebody else. That's not my idea. And again, this may be me operating in a perfect world, and I may find very quickly, if I'm elected to the board, that this isn't a perfect world, because I've already discussed the financing for the school district, and there'll never be enough as far as funds to do everything that you want to do.
Right.
But again, with regards to the discussion that we're having here, my goal would be that we could help the students that need help while not harming the students that in our discussion here don't need extra help.
So the school has spent a lot of money, or relatively speaking, on things like the Dane County Equity Consortium, which in that case, the idea of equity is more racially driven. Do you think that's an organization we should be a part of? Is it something we should pull out of?
So my understanding of our involvement, meaning the school district's involvement with that group, was that approximately 2 years ago. Again, I believe I'm correct on this, and if I'm wrong, then hopefully somebody will bring that.
Oh,
to my
someone
attention.
will, right?
Of course they will, Matt. That for approximately 2 years, the Lodi School District was a part of that group, but my understanding is that we no longer are. And I used we. I mean the school district.
Right.
And my thought on that is, I would not be for spending our tax dollars to be involved with what I would view as a political group.
Sure. I know as recently as of last year, there was still involvement, because I know there was training and stuff with some of the board members and the staff through the Dane County Equity Consortium. My wife obviously is on the board, and I know that she was asked to sit in on some training with their teams. It was via Zoom, I think, at the time. So maybe they're no longer a part of it, but my understanding was that they were.
And again, as you've alluded to, if I'm speaking out of turn or out of line, I will be corrected on that.
Right.
And the facts will be set straight.
Yeah, I don't expect you to have all the answers to every question.
Well, again, I prided myself in attending board meetings as frequently as I can. Really, the only meetings that I don't attend are if I'm not in the area.
Sure.
And I don't recall a significant amount of discussion about this topic at meetings that I've attended. And for the past number of years, I've attended, whether it be in person or online, on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah.
So as
I don't think it's been discussed heavily in the board meetings themselves, but
perhaps at the committee level. So I don't pretend to know all of the inner workings as far as the school district's involvement with that particular group.
So it's getting late, so I want to punch through a couple things with you as quickly as we can, while still giving you the opportunity to address them. Critical race theory is a hot topic here on both sides of the political aisle here. What is critical race theory?
Critical race theory is something different to every individual, I believe. Go try to find a definition. It is very, very difficult. And I believe that the reality is that, again, each individual person, whether you're white, whether you're African American, has what their definition of critical race theory is. Now, to help me better understand critical race theory, the definition that in my mind I use, and again, I don't profess to be an expert on this. I do think that many people may believe that critical race theory is a relatively new idea. It isn't.
Right.
It's been around, I believe, late 70s, early 80s. and it's advanced thinking. But to me, in my research in trying to better understand critical race theory, definition that I found that kind of rang true to me was this definition: U.S. social institutions, labor market, justice system, education system, housing, healthcare are laced with racism embedded in laws that lead to differential outcomes by race. So when I hear critical race theory or people discussing critical race theory, that's my definition.
Mm-hmm.
And again, your definition may be difficult. Different.
Right.
And again, I can't stress enough. I think everybody has what their own definition of critical race theory is.
Do you believe that the organizations in the United States of America, by and large, are systemically racist? And do you think that's a problem in the Lodi School District?
I don't have my finger on the pulse of the Lodi School District right now. From the outside looking in, I don't view the Lodi School District as systemically racist. Now, am I so naive as to think that inappropriate things may be said or done or insinuated? No, I mean, I don't have my head in the sand, and
Sure.
I know what the unfortunate reality is. The thing with regards to critical race theory also that I try to keep in mind is that I think that it's become very politicized.
Mm-hmm.
I think that with President Trump, it really kind of gained a lot of steam and came to the forefront. To answer your question, I don't believe that there is systemic racism through the school district of Lodi.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not so naive as to think that it's a perfect world and perhaps inappropriate things aren't done or said
Sure.
that can be hurtful to different or specifically minority groups in the school district.
So based on your current knowledge level, which we all understand you're not on the board, you're not heavily involved. So based on your current knowledge level, do you feel that investing time and resources and staff training do you think it's a wise or an unwise investment to spend time and money and resources on training people on racial equity, which is currently being done at the school through some of the reading material that's been given out to teachers, through some of the incentives to do some of that study? Do you feel like that's
I think
a priority?
I think education is always a good thing. I think educating people on things that are on topics that they may not be as familiar with is a very positive thing, and I think it helps people to grow.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there have been cases where people have been required to read certain materials. I don't necessarily believe that is something that I would support. I think that teachers educating themselves on different topics is a very beneficial thing for them to do and can help with the experience that they can provide to our students. But I think that they, meaning the teachers, should have a say in how they want to educate themselves. I don't believe that the topics or subjects that are very politicized should be mandated either for students to have to study
Mm-hmm.
or for teachers to have to be to learn about. I think that there should be the opportunity for students or teachers, if that's a subject that they're interested
Yeah.
in learning about, to have that opportunity to do so, because frankly, I think that type of learning benefits everyone,
Yeah.
not only the students, but even members of the community that interact with our teachers.
I like it. We've been going a little over an hour, so I want to kind of ask one final question and then let you kind of wrap this up, whatever you'd like to kind of communicate, make sure we get that in. There was a post made online earlier today by somebody making a statement, and I'm not going to presume their intentions or anything of that nature. I just want you to be able to speak to it since it was posted publicly, where you made a statement that I took personally as very kind. You mentioned something to me on Facebook, and you and I met for the first time tonight. So we had communicated on Facebook a couple of times, and you had said that let your wife know. My wife is Christy. She's on the school board, and she is often of a position contrary to the majority of the school board. And oftentimes she'll make a motion that won't get a second, which means then that can't be discussed. And you made a comment to me of let your wife know that I'll always second her motion. And that was either misunderstood or misrepresented, I believe, based on what I could tell. And I just want to give you the opportunity to address that, explain what you meant by that statement.
So I appreciate you bringing this up, Matt. I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to discuss this, because when I was made aware of the post today, I was shocked.
Yeah.
And you're right. This is our first time meeting face to face. We have had communication, texting, but first time meeting face to face. When I read the post, I considered the source, and I'm not going to go into the source here because, frankly, it doesn't warrant it. I have no problem if people want to support other candidates. I've gone as far as to say, get out and vote. Even if you're not voting for me, get out and vote. Now, getting to the specifics of what you've given me the opportunity to talk about. As I've mentioned numerous times, I have attended board meetings for years, and I have never seen at those board meetings what I saw happen to your wife, a board member, on 2 separate occasions. Generally, and maybe people aren't aware of how these board meetings work, but if the board, when they're in session, wants to discuss a topic, a member of the board makes a motion to discuss said topic. And the rest of the group, the other 6 members, are not able to discuss that topic unless a second is made. And once a second is made, then there can be general discussion. And after the discussion, you can act on whatever you spoke of. So on 2 occasions, I've seen Christy make a motion, and I've seen 6 board members sit there and not say a word. And my point to you was, I don't feel that's appropriate. If an elected board member wants to have discussion on a topic, I think it warrants having discussion. What was insinuated in that post is that I was colluding with your wife for future policies, radicalization. The only thing I want to radicalize is I want kids to have a radically great education.
Sure.
I want parents to be radically happy about their interactions with the board. But getting back to your point, what I said to her, and what's really funny about this, Matt, is the second time that it happened, it was about removing masking, something that I couldn't be more against.
Yeah.
But she deserved the respect to at least have the discussion. And I said in the post, if it would have been read, even if I disagree and would vote against you, I would second it. So what I said in my post to you is, if your wife makes a motion, I will second it, and we can discuss it. that does not mean that I have to vote with her on said topic.
Right.
It means that we will discuss it. It means that we will listen to each other's perspectives on said item. And it means that when the chairman asks if there are any more comments, and when there are none, we then, if a motion has been put forward, we then vote on it. But nothing that I said to you indicates that if I'm elected to the board, that Christy and I have some secret agreement to upset drastically the apple cart.
Yeah.
And I understand that people are very adamant about their candidates. And you know what? That's great.
Yeah.
There are 5 of us running, and there is not a single one of us that is going to get 100% of the vote. There are people that are going to disagree with us and vote for somebody else. And you know what? That's okay.
And that is the definition. That's the definition of democracy, which is what's so funny to me when people say they're upsetting our democracy or whatever. That's the whole point of democracy, is you get to vote, which I love. A lot of people are accusing me of, you're doing this and there's no way you can be impartial and whatever. I'm like, you get to vote for whoever you want to vote for. I just want to get them on and let them talk. You and I may not agree on everything. Doesn't matter. I'm interviewing 3 of the 5 candidates. 2 of them declined to accept the offer to come on and talk. Happy to talk with all 5. That's the great thing about our democracy, is that people can vote for whomever they wish.
And it should be understood that when we talked about setting this meeting up tonight, I did clarify. I reached out to you to ask you, have all parties been invited to come and speak? And if they have been asked to come and have declined, fine. But I wanted to know that everybody did have the opportunity to come, because the optics would have looked very poor had you just invited the 3 of us and not given everyone equal opportunity.
Yep.
So that's part of the reason that I agreed, and I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to come here tonight and sit down with you and talk, and hopefully give people a better understanding of where I'm coming from with regards to my run for the school board.
Well, Scott, we've covered a lot of ground and talked about a lot of stuff, and I'm truly grateful that you would sit down. I hope you've felt like it's been fair. So I'm going to give you. I'll make some closing remarks in a second, just kind of signing off. But I want you to have the final word. Anything you'd like to clarify or say, or any final kind of presentations about why you appreciate people's votes, and you take it away and kind of close us out here.
Well, again, thank you, Matt, for letting me come and speak with you tonight. I think that the more the 3 of us, meaning the non-incumbents, can get out there and let people know where we stand on certain issues, but maybe tonight, more importantly than just where we stand, kind of the reasoning why. And I appreciate you allowing me to talk about where I stand on masks. And I respect your opinion. I respect your feelings on masking. And I think that very soon there'll be an opportunity where we can work together to find a common ground, something that we are all comfortable with and happy with. Not just with regards to masking, but with regards to the relationship between the community and parents, the school board, the teachers. I really, truly believe that there's an opportunity to improve from where we're at. And I hope that I get the opportunity to do so. I'm ready to give back. I'm ready to work my tail off. you learn a lot when you put yourself out here to run for the school board. And one of the things I'm learning is that it's way more work than one board meeting a month, but it doesn't scare me. I've got the time, I've got the energies, I've got the desire, I've got the willingness, and I've got an open ear. And I want to work with people, and I want to listen to people, and I don't want to come across as arrogant or dismissive or your opinion doesn't matter. I think there's a lot of good that we can do, and I think that basically it's important to do this because our kids are counting on it. So again, thank you, everybody. Please keep in mind there are a lot of issues with regards to this school board election, and consider all of the candidates and then decide for yourselves who you think will do the best job for you. And I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I feel like it's helped me to get to know you better and know where you stand on things. And if you're watching, I really want to encourage you to get to know all 5 candidates. I am not here to present my favorite or my preferred in any way, shape, or form. I'm grateful that both of the candidates that I've been able to speak to thus far have allowed me to push back on some things. And I plan to do that with everybody because I think that we have the right to get our questions out. Now, I noticed that several of you have asked some questions online. I haven't been able, without getting distracted, to read those, but I've seen a little bit of those. I would encourage you to reach out to Scott. He is on Facebook. I believe it's Scott Bilse for Lodi School Board. And so you can look him up on Facebook and find him on there. And I know he's responsive. He is busy. He's got a full-time job that takes a lot of time. And so he'll respond to those as he can. And we want to respect his time on that stuff as well. So I'm grateful that these folks would come on and that they take some time to kind of explain their positions. And hopefully this was informative for you as well. Tomorrow night is Heather Barron. And I'm excited to talk to her and get to know her a little bit more as well. I know that she's got some strong opinions and she's got some beliefs that she really holds to. And so we want to press that a little bit and make sure that she can defend her positions and that we know what they mean and why she's got them. And so I'm looking forward to that as well. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight, and I look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow.